Good morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. We're back on this Wednesday morning with a massive show to bring you guys today. But before we jump into that, please do smash a like on the video and please do subscribe to the channel, bottom right hand corner, and get involved. On the show today, we're going to be talking and reacting to a story saying that the players blame Eric Ten Hag for the poor run of form at the beginning of the season. We'll also be reacting to the story that apparently John Murtough will be remaining at Manchester United in some capacity. We'll of course be going into that. Lots of other bits to get into as well around transfer stuff, around what might happen in January. Also, of course, when this Sir Jim 25% takeover, whatever you want to call it, will be announced. So lots of stuff to get into. As always, please do get involved in the comment section. Please get involved in the live chat. Let me know your thoughts on everything we discuss on today's show. So let's start off with the story about the players blaming Ten Hag, because obviously you can see by the video thumbnail, Player Power FC. It's just the same old stuff over and over again. So the headline coming out this afternoon, it was about maybe 10 o'clock last night that this story broke, and I want to say it surprised me, but at the same time, I don't think anything surprises me with the Manchester United players anymore. I think we know what their mentality's like. They're always looking for somebody to blame other than themselves. And this story just kind of confirms that. So the story came out from Jamie Jackson, who is a journalist for The Guardian, for The Observer. I think he's Manchester based. Yeah, he's Manchester football correspondent for The Guardian and The Observer. So he's been quite good around Manchester United news in the past. I think he's quite a reliable journalist. And he was reporting yesterday saying the following. He says that a selection of Manchester United players believe the team's poor start to the season is down to Eric Ten Hag's overworking the squad in pre-season. He goes on to say they have complained of beginning the campaign feeling as tired as they were when they finished the previous one. It then goes on to say that those discontented include several senior squad members. It is understood none have explicitly aired their concerns to the manager, who believes his players are fully committed and comprehend the need for sacrifice if Manchester United are to be consistently successful. It then goes on to say that Ten Hag may have been governed by commercial demands with regard to the pre-season itinerary. Christian Eriksen complained about the travelling after United had lost to Borussia Dortmund in Las Vegas in the final US tour game, but the midfield stated a tough pre-season was to be expected. Now, I just think this is ridiculous personally. Like, you play for Manchester United, we're the biggest club in the world. Yes, other teams had easier pre-seasons. Yes, other teams travelled less. Yes, other teams... I think Aston Villa, right? I don't think Aston Villa even left the UK, as far as I'm aware. I think they just played all of their games in the UK. I mean, that's great. I would love to do that. I would love for us to just play all of our games at Old Trafford for pre-season, to be on the training field for 90% of the pre-season tour and not have to go anywhere. But we're Manchester United. That's not how it works. We have such a big commercial brand. There's so much money out there to be made that us going and doing a tour of America, I can't even begin to imagine how much money that would have generated for the club, all of the commercial duties, all of the sponsorships they would have got. Yes, I get it. We're football fans. Yes, we want to focus on the team playing well. I understand that. But for the players to try and blame Eric Ten Hag, why would Eric Ten Hag decide to play 7 games in America in the space of 2 weeks? That's clear to see that was the Glazers, that was the management, the upper management who would have put together that schedule. Eric Ten Hag wouldn't have said, you know what, I would love to go and play 7 games in America, some 8-hour flights between each other with only 2 or 3 days between. Why would he want to do that? And it's not like this is the first time this has ever happened. Every single season, apart from obviously COVID years, we would go and do these ridiculous tours in the summer. Every single year it would happen. And so I don't really understand how the players can try and turn this around as an excuse, It's not an excuse. They're professional athletes. They're paid vast amounts of money. Yes, I get it that, the body is the body. And if you overwork the body, it's not, just because you're paid loads of money doesn't mean that you can, beat physical well-being or whatever you want to call it. But still, I just think it's a poor excuse. And I think it's a poor way for them to try and point more blame onto Eric Ten Hag when I don't blame Eric Ten Hag for any of that. I know for a fact, well, not for a fact, but I'm almost certain that Eric Ten Hag would have much rather stayed in the UK, played, 4 or 5 fixtures across a month period, spent most of his time at Carrington, training the players, working out how they were going to play in the next season and all the rest of it. He would have definitely preferred to do that than been flying all around America for 2-3 weeks, with 2 days between each game, flying 7-8 hour flights from one coast of America to the other. Like no football manager would want that. So I just think it's ridiculous. But let me know what you guys think about that. Do you think Erik Ten Hag holds any blame? Or do you think that this is something that can, be pointed more further up? For me, I think you've just got to look further up than this. We know that Erik Ten Hag doesn't make the schedules. He doesn't decide who we play in pre-season. That's not how football works. It will be done by the commercial department. So I just, when this story broke this morning, again from Jamie Jackson, this is a new story that came out today, ultimately saying that the players are unhappy. I just think it's not really what you want when you've got a massive game against Everton coming up on Sunday, which is obviously a must-win game. Everton are going to be really, really up for it. It's going to be a very, very difficult match. And for the players to be ultimately saying that we're tired, it's just a bit embarrassing, to be honest. But let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section. Cobra says pre-season was just a commercial exercise. Yeah, of course it was, mate. They just wanted to make as much money as possible, and they would have done that. Scott says there are far too many games. There is no time for the guys to recover. Their bodies are being abused. I would agree with that, but that's just modern football now, mate. I just think that there's a bigger problem being talked about here. It's not specific to Erik Ten Hag or to Manchester United. Lots of the top clubs would have had similar schedules to this, Ultimately, not that many people want to see Bournemouth today. Like, let's be honest, just as an example, or a team down the bottom, like Luton wouldn't have done a 10-day tour of Japan because, let's be honest, most people, in those places probably don't know who Luton are, as an example. Whereas Manchester United, they come and it's probably one of the biggest events of the year. If Manchester United come to America, they'll sell out every stadium, won't they? So it's just how football's gone now. Football is a commercial game. A lot of the actual football element of football has been lost, The players are overplayed. I get that. The players are not the first priority. The first priority is money. Hendrik says Ten Hag has to be held accountable. His systems are rubbish, no pattern. He has no idea where to place Mason Mount, and why does he think Bruno can perform on the right? I mean, we're talking about footballing stuff now. This is more of the players blaming Erik Ten Hag for playing too many pre-season matches. I think it's a slightly different conversation, but obviously I'm happy to read out your opinion and your point. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. Everyone who's just joined in the last couple of minutes, please do smash a like on the video. It brings more people into the channel, so please do that if you haven't already, and please do subscribe bottom right hand corner if you are new. Right, let's crack on with the rest of the story. I wanted to highlight something that somebody sent to me on Twitter a couple of days ago, and I don't know if any of you guys saw this, but obviously the Manchester United women's team had the derby on Sunday. So obviously the Man United women's versus the Man City women's at Old Trafford. I think it looked pretty full. I don't think it sold out, but it looked full. It looked fuller than the Etihad does. Anyway, so they played on Sunday, and there's these videos going round of the roof in the stadium, the ceiling literally falling apart. I mean, honestly, you couldn't make this stuff up. And there's a video of somebody, and there's literally like concrete falling from the ceiling in the kind of where you get the drinks and stuff. And do you know what's actually mad? And I honestly respect this person. Hundreds, probably thousands of people now have written to Manchester City Council. So not Manchester City as in the football club, as in the Council of Manchester, right? They've written to the council saying that they think the stadium isn't safe because there's literally bits of concrete falling on people in the kind of walkways and stuff. So it looks like the Council of Manchester will actually now investigate it. So we'll have to see what happens. And the worst thing that could happen, I mean, I think it's good for us to demand the stadium to be repaired, but for the Glazers and for the club is that they could actually end up closing some areas of the stadium. Like, we'll obviously have to wait and see how this story develops, but I'm surprised that nobody's done this before, that nobody's reported Old Trafford for being unsafe, because it clearly is unsafe, I know people will say, oh, it's only a bit of rain that gets leaks on you, but I don't know. Imagine if you go to a football match, right, and it's supposed to be a roof over the top of you and you just sit there and get absolutely soaked. Like, if you were somebody old, right, and you got a cold or something, like, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not all right, is it? And now there's actually bits of the ceiling crumbling onto people, and I don't mean like little bits of dust. I mean, like, I'm looking at the picture right now. I mean, like, visibly big bits of concrete falling from the roof and the ceiling. I mean, it is a health hazard, so we'll have to see what happens with that one. Yeah. Andy says it's not the Glazers, not Ten Hag. He did not plan. Yeah, Andy says it's the Glazers' fault, not Ten Hag. He did not plan it. I know, mate. I 100% agree with you there. I don't get that. Somebody says Erik Ten Hag makes it difficult for himself by playing the same team every time, even in cup games. Okay. Ranjit says, let's face it, the players, especially ours, played way too many games last season. I think no one's to blame. Adjustments need to be made. More youth on tour, larger squad, more loanees. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Somebody says it was in the public domain that Ten Hag wasn't comfortable for a preseason tour in America. Yeah, he said that there was too many games and it was too much. But the Glazers don't care. They just see the money checks. They just see the corporate deals. They see the sponsorships. They see, the match day sales that they can bring in, and that's all that they really care about. It's the same. It's the same old stuff over and over again. And I think this story about the stadium just kind of echoes that. The fact that there's literally the roof crumbling on people, which is a health hazard, regardless of us saying, oh, we want a new stadium, we want a new stadium. Imagine if, one of those big bits of rubble hit you in the head. Anything could happen. So I'm really glad that people have actually been reporting the stadium to the council in Manchester now as a health hazard. And hopefully it does get looked into properly because, it's one of those ones where it needs to be addressed, not just because we want a new fancy stadium, but because at the moment it doesn't even meet the bare minimum standards of what, is safe and what is somewhere that you'd pay, to go in the public domain. Right, but let's move on to the rest of the show. Let's see. I'll come back to the live chat in a minute. Let's talk a little bit about Murtough. Now, we have spoke about Murtough a couple of times on the show. So the headline this morning is that apparently Murtough looks like he will be staying at Manchester United, but it looks like he will be given a different role. So he won't be the director of football. We're not sure entirely at this moment what his other role is going to be. So we'll have to wait and see what comes of that. But it looks like he will remain in some capacity. Obviously, this guy's been at Manchester United for a very, very long time. It's not like he's just joined. He's been at Manchester United since 2013. He's in his 10th year of being at Manchester United. He started as the academy manager. Then he moved over to the director of development. Then he was working in the women's team as the strategic advisor, and now he's the director of football for 2 years. I'll be honest with you, I don't really know much about how he did in his previous bits, as the academy manager. So I'm not going to criticise him for that because I honestly don't know. And I think that would be unfair of me to say, oh, he's been a failure for 10 years because I genuinely, I don't follow John Murtough's career. I only really know of him since he was the director of football, and we can all agree that since he's been the director of football, he's not been good enough, and he doesn't have, in my opinion, the footballing experience to be able to bring in the best players in the world and to be able to create a future for Manchester United. So, I mean, if he gets put back down to the academy manager or something, I don't want to say I don't care because I think every element of it's important. But I think the director of football is probably, the CEO, the director of football, and the manager are probably the three most important jobs in a football club, aren't they? Obviously, an academy manager is important. I 100% appreciate that. And our academy has been suffering, I think. When you think in the last 10 years, the players to come through our academy, you've had, players who've actually kind of made it, if you like. You've got Garnacho, but we signed him from Atletico Madrid about 3 or 4 years ago. So he isn't somebody who's come all the way through the academy. Then obviously you've got people like McTominay, Rashford, Greenwood, off the top of my head. And then you've obviously got people like Kobe Mainoo, Scott McTominay. There's some other people on the cusp of that. But if you actually look at the last 10 years, I wouldn't say that we're a conveyor belt of world-class talent, to be honest. When you think of the last 10 years, the best player we've brought through is probably Marcus Rashford. And I would say it's probably 50-50 in the fan base at the moment whether they think Rashford should be starting games. Other people want Garnacho to start. Some people want Pellistri to start. And I think that in some ways we need to just have a completely clean house. We need to get rid of the John Murtoughs, not give them other jobs, because that's always what we used to do. We used to kind of help people out, didn't we? We didn't really look at them if they were the best in the world. We'd say, oh, well, he's been here for 10 years. Let's give him a job somewhere else. And I just hope that we don't repeat those same mistakes. Obviously, the most important thing is getting in this Jean-Claude Blanc guy, I think. Paul says Murtough came with David Moyes. Yes, he did. I can see here he came from Everton at the same time as David Moyes. Yeah, so somebody says it's not Erik Ten Hag's fault. United has many injuries. It's not his fault for poor performances when there are no first team players, really. I would agree with that. I think if anything, all of these injuries could be due to the fact that we played too many games in pre-season. And again, that's not Erik Ten Hag's fault. He didn't pick the tour. That was up to the Glazers. That was up to the commercial department. Probably was up to Richard Arnold, who was the CEO at the time. So yeah, we need to point the blame in the right person. Scott says Rashford has got one goal this season, has had one good season in I don't know how many. Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point, mate. It's a fair point. Hendrik says Ten Hag is doing what other managers have done, having 3 goalkeepers, but only get the opportunity others wait for injuries to happen. Just like what is happening to Rashford, he has been rubbish. Yeah. Right, let's read out a couple more quickly. Scott says 9.5 years is too long for John Murtough to be here. I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with all of that, to be honest. I would. I think we just need to completely clean house. We need to change everything up and we need to try and move on positively. That's my expectation from Manchester United. That's my hope that, that those types of things can happen now. The other thing I wanted to talk about as well, really, really quickly. Now, this is a bit of a strange story, to be honest. I don't really know how this has happened, but obviously, I don't know if you guys saw, but Edwin van der Sar was commenting or has commented on one of Altay Bayinder's posts, and he said this. I'll read out word for word what Edwin van der Sar said. He said, Hi Altay, we'll see you soon in Manchester and we will have a chat about goalkeeping, but my favourite is still Andre Onana, as you know. Now this is, I mean, to me it doesn't sound that bad. Obviously it's a bit of a weird thing to comment on somebody's Instagram post. I mean, it sounds kind of like a message that you would send in a DM, not like he literally put it on a public post, I think, after Altay Bayinder had posted we've just won the game. I think they beat Germany, didn't they? Was it? Yeah, in the international break. Anyway, and Edwin van der Sar puts this comment on there, and obviously that's been now blown out of proportion. Sorry, everybody's going crazy about it. And then the story this morning is that apparently these words have greatly upset Altay Bayinder and his representatives, and they've even gone as far as spoken to Manchester United's communication team about this. I don't know about all of these types of things. I'm sure Edwin van der Sar meant no harm from what he said. I think he was just probably having a bit of fun. Obviously, Onana was at Ajax. Edwin van der Sar was at Ajax. I don't know. I just think it's a bit weird, and I think it has been blown out of proportion. Like, there's so many journalists and stuff trying to turn this into a story, and I just wanted to try and kind of squash that a little bit. I think it's a little bit strange doing what Edwin van der Sar did, but I don't think there's anything more than that. I think it was probably just him trying to have a bit of a laugh, trying to probably what he thought being nice, saying we'll meet up when I'm in Manchester and we can have a chat and all the rest of it. And yeah, but this story's obviously gone everywhere now, and people are trying to say that Edwin van der Sar shouldn't say this to a young player. Let's see what people say in the chat though. Saf says, I think it's quite inconsiderate by Edwin van der Sar. I get you, mate. I do. I mean, obviously, Altay Bayinder hasn't played a minute of football yet for Manchester United. Gominda says he could have been hacked or maybe misunderstood. I think it's more of just a misunderstanding. I think maybe it was the wording of it. Maybe he wrote it in Dutch and it was a translation. I don't know. I don't know what exactly happened. But yeah, obviously this has been completely maximised in the media and everyone's trying to make it into this really big story of, Gominda says it's not an issue as Van der Sar is not linked to United currently. Yeah, I would agree with you. Riaz says Bruno does not have the quality players next to him. The same as for Højlund. With the right players, we can be a difficult team, etc. Look how players perform with the right players by their side. I would agree with that. Darren says, I find the pre-season and subsequent injuries a joke. This is supposed to be one of the top sporting teams in the world with the resources and the money to prepare as best as they can for the new season. I agree with you, Darren. But if I'm looking at that on the flip side, I would say that the Glazers and Richard Arnold, the CEO, will, in their eyes, will have prepared the best for the season because they'll have made the most amount of money, they'll have maximised their commercial opportunities in pre-season, and that's the main thing here, making money, and that's why we need this change. That's why we need Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, Paul Mitchell, Jean-Claude Blanc. We need people to come in whose priority is football. And the thing that's stupid with all of this is, if we start winning trophies again, if we start winning Champions League, Premier Leagues, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying if, then Manchester United's revenue will go through the roof. It will just go up and up and up and up and up and up. And that's the thing that I don't understand how the Glazers haven't understood over these years, that They're just content with getting top 4 because they still know they're going to make loads of money from shirt sponsorship deals and all the rest of it, right? But if we actually start being successful on the pitch, those deals will be worth even more than they were before. So, like, I think they look at everything very short-sighted. I think they look at it as immediate. There's no long-term plan. It's like, let's get as much money as we can from this preseason tour. I don't care if the players get injured. It's that kind of logic, and it makes zero sense for me personally. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I can't get my head around it other than that it's just them to make more money, and that's just what I've come to realise. Right, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined me on the show this morning. Please do make sure to smash a like on the video before you go. Please do subscribe to the channel, bottom right-hand corner. I'll drop a link in the chat to do that now if you haven't already. Thank you, everybody. I will be back later this evening, about 6:15 p.m. UK time. I hope everyone has a lovely day, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world, and I'll speak to you all a bit later.